Girl rescues Black billionaire from fiery crash. His last words changed her life. The flames clawed upward like wild beasts, painting the night sky in bursts of orange and blue. A metallic screech still echoed in the alleyway, the sound of twisted steel meeting concrete. A luxury black SUV had slammed headfirst into a light pole, its hood crumpled like a crushed can, smoke billowing thick from beneath. Inside, trapped behind the airbag and the cracked windshield, was a man. Blood trickled from his temple. His seatbelt had locked. His hand, trembling, reached for the door. It didn't budge. "Please, please don't let me die here," he gasped, his voice barely audible over the hiss of leaking fluid and the low crackle of growing fire. From the shadows, a figure hesitated. She was 12, dirty hoodie 2 sizes too big. Torn sneakers, a tangle of dark curls plastered to her forehead by the rain. Her name was Alina Carter, though no one had asked in years. The city moved past her. People rarely looked down, but tonight, something made her stop. He screamed again, louder this time. "Somebody help me, please!" Alina stepped closer. It wasn't her problem. People died in the city all the time. Alone. Unseen. But his eyes. In that moment of desperation, when they locked on hers through the spiderweb of shattered glass, he didn't look rich. Or powerful. He just looked human. She dropped the lasagna she'd found behind Sal's pizzeria and ran. "Turn your face!" she shouted, grabbing a brick from the planter nearby. 1, 2. On the third strike, the passenger side window gave way in 1,000 sharp-edged pieces. Smoke poured out as she reached in blindly, coughing. "Can you move?" He nodded, but barely. She undid the seatbelt, muscles straining against the dead weight. Her hands burned against the heat of the leather. With every second, the fire got closer. The flames were licking through the footwell now. The air tasted like gasoline and metal. "You've got to move!" she yelled, her voice cracking. "Now!" He tried. His legs buckled, but she pulled, gripping his jacket, dragging him through broken glass and steam. Her sneakers slid on the wet pavement, knees scraping concrete. The heat stung her eyes, but she didn't stop. They fell to the sidewalk just as the engine burst. A low, thunderous boom shook the street. A fireball erupted, briefly illuminating the alley like daylight. Her ears rang, her heart pounded. But he was breathing, alive. He lay there coughing, gasping for air. And then he turned to her. "You saved me," he whispered, the words trembling with disbelief. Don't let them win." Before she could ask what that meant, his eyes fluttered shut. Sirens wailed in the distance. She ran, not because she was afraid of him. Because the sirens meant cops. Cops meant questions. Questions meant her real name, her lack of ID, and the word she hated most: custody. By the time the first responders arrived, Alina was back in the shadows. Her fingers bled, her chest heaved. But she'd done it. She'd saved someone. A man whose car probably cost more than the entire shelter she ran from at age 9. A man who said something strange. Don't let them win. She didn't even know who them were. She never expected to hear his voice again. But she would. And when she did, it would change everything. 2 days earlier, Alina had found a place to sleep in the shell of an abandoned subway station beneath Wabash Avenue. She called it the Northern Kingdom. Her kingdom. The old lockers were her castle walls. Soda bottle caps she'd collected from garbage cans were currency. The blue ones were rare, water tokens. Red ones were weapons, yellow for gold. Her map of the city lived in her mind, with places she knew to avoid. places where people stared too long, where she'd once lost a backpack, where a man had tried to take her by the wrist. She didn't remember much of her mom anymore, only the perfume. And the final words, "Wait here, baby. I'll be right back." Alina waited. That was 3 years ago. Now she didn't wait for anyone. But tonight. Tonight, she had waited just long enough to hear that man scream. She hated that part of her. The part that cared. He had soft hands. She remembered that. A thin gold chain around his wrist. But his voice? That was the part she couldn't forget. The way it cracked when he said please, not like begging. Like surrender. Back in her shelter, she rearranged her bottle caps. One blue one was missing. The one that had fallen when she pulled him away. Maybe it was still out there. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe someone would think of her. She shook the thought from her head. Dangerous. Hope always came with strings. The next morning, the city woke up to headlines. Black tech billionaire nearly killed in fiery crash. Marcus Devereaux survives mystery accident. Witness unknown. Alina saw his face on a TV through the window of a pawn shop. His cheek was bandaged, but his jawline sharp, his eyes familiar. He's the guy, she murmured, and the crawl beneath his face. That made her freeze. Reward offered for information on the young girl who saved Devereaux. Her knees went weak. They were looking for her. That night, she dreamed of fire. In the dream, she was in the car too. But this time, no one saved her. Across the city, in a hospital suite with marble floors and quiet machines, Marcus Devereaux opened his eyes. For a long moment, he just stared at the ceiling. The girl, the smoke, her voice. I saw her, he said aloud. His security chief, Rhys Bennett, looked up from the tablet at his bedside. Sir? Marcus didn't blink. The girl. She saved me. You were lucky. Everyone says so. No, Marcus whispered. I was rescued. Rhys sighed. She's not been found. The camera at the intersection was busted. She didn't stay. Marcus turned his head. Then you find her. Use whatever we have. Start with the street kids. Someone must know. Rhys raised an eyebrow. And when I do? Marcus's voice was hoarse, but firm. She saved me, but her eyes, those weren't a child's eyes. They've seen things. Things they shouldn't have. And if she doesn't want to be found, then you still find her, Marcus said. She deserves better. And I need to know who they are. Rhys frowned. You think it wasn't an accident? Marcus didn't answer directly. Instead, he repeated the last thing he remembered saying. Don't let them win. Rhys stared at him. Who's them, Marcus? Marcus looked away, voice low. That's what I need her help to remember. Out on the street, Alina walked past a bus stop. A woman in a tan coat was reading the newspaper. At the bottom corner of the front page, a new photo had been added under Marcus Devereaux's recovery update. A still from a nearby traffic cam, just grainy enough to blur her face, but sharp enough to show her silhouette, pulling him from the car. Alina stopped cold. It was her. Not just the moment she saved a life. It was the moment everything changed. And somewhere, a powerful man was waking up with only her name, her shadow, and a promise. A promise that would rewrite both their fates. She didn't know it yet, but she would never be invisible again. The alley smelled of sour milk and rusted iron, the scent thick enough to make most people turn around. But Alina Carter didn't flinch. This was her territory. Her path through the backbones of a city that had long forgotten her. She moved with the fluidity of a stray cat, quiet, invisible. The concrete beneath her sneakers was still damp from last night's rain, and her coat clung to her skin. But her eyes were sharp, always scanning, always expecting something to go wrong. She didn't realize it yet, but she was being watched. From a black SUV parked across the street, Reese Bennett sat behind the wheel, eyes hidden behind dark aviators, jaw clenched. He had tracked street kids before, runaways, witnesses, even suspects. But this one was different. She wasn't running. She was hiding in plain sight, clever, careful, and fast. He'd spent 2 days combing through camera footage, interviewing homeless teens, talking to shelter volunteers and newsstand owners. They all said the same thing. Yeah, there's a kid who fits. Quiet, keeps to herself, doesn't steal, just scavenges. Smart, fast, disappears like smoke. Reese knew instinct when he saw it. This girl wasn't surviving. She was strategizing. He had seen her twice now from a distance. And today, he would make contact. Alina didn't notice the SUV at first. Her mind was on the sandwich she hoped the bakery would toss out in the next 15 minutes. It was Thursday. Thursdays meant old sourdough. If she was lucky, maybe a sliver of cheese. Then she saw the man. He was tall, dressed too neat for this part of the city, leaning against a pole near the subway entrance, pretending to scroll his phone but looking around too much. She knew the type. Cops, outreach workers, or worse, foster agents. She tensed, turned her face and changed direction immediately. But Reese had already clocked her. "Alina," he said, just loud enough to freeze her steps. Her back stiffened. No one used her name. She turned, slowly, ready to run. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, lifting both hands. "I just want to talk." "Then talk from there," she replied coldly. Reese took a breath. "The man you saved."
"His name is Marcus Devereaux. Do you know who he is?" She said nothing. "He's looking for you."
"Not the cops, him, personally. I don't want anything from him," she snapped. "I don't need anything. He said you'd say that." She narrowed her eyes.
"He just wants to say thank you. Nothing else." "That's what they always say,"
Alina muttered. "Then the questions start, the files, the court dates." "The shelters." Reese took a slow step forward. "Listen. I was raised in a system not too different from what you're scared of. I get it. I've seen what it does. But Marcus, he's not like the others. I don't care who he is."
"Yeah, you do,"
Reese said softly.
"Because you didn't leave him there to die, and now you want to know if it mattered."
Alina's lip trembled for half a second. She turned her face away, furious with herself for letting him see it. "You don't know anything about me. I know you didn't hesitate to run into fire for a stranger. That tells me more than enough." Silence stretched between them. A siren screamed in the distance. Somewhere, a dog barked. Reese stepped back. "Here," he said, pulling a folded card from his coat and tossing it onto the pavement near her feet. "If you ever want answers, or a hot meal or a shower, call the number. No questions. No cops." She didn't move. He left. It wasn't until he disappeared around the corner that Alina picked up the card. Private number. No caller ID, just a name. Reese. Back at Marcus's penthouse, the man himself was pacing. The bandage on his temple was gone now, but a line of red still cut through his hairline. His suit fit perfectly, but his posture was off, shoulders tight, steps uneven. "She's not going to come to me," he muttered. "She's a kid," Reese replied, pouring 2 fingers of bourbon. "But she's not stupid. Give her space." "You don't understand," Marcus snapped. "That fire, it wasn't an accident." Reese froze. What? Someone tampered with the car, the brakes, the locking mechanism.
The explosion wasn't from impact. It was fuel-fed. Do we have proof? I pulled surveillance data from my own team. No one's saying anything, but I know Richard Lindley's fingerprints are all over this. Reese swore under his breath. You think Richard tried to kill you? Not think, Marcus said. No, I just don't have enough yet to bring it forward. And you think this girl, Alina, could have seen something? She was there. She might have seen the guy who tampered with the car, or the second vehicle that peeled off right before the crash. But even if she didn't, I owe her more than my life. Reese crossed his arms. What are you planning to do if we find her? Marcus turned to the window. The city sprawled beneath them like a circuit board, buzzing and blinking, oblivious. First, I'll make sure she's safe. And then? Marcus looked down at the tiny red bottle cap on his desk, the one she dropped pulling him from the wreck. Then I'll find a way to change her life. Whether she wants it or not. The next morning, Alina was gone from her usual haunts. Reese found the bakery trash bin untouched. The newsstand man said he hadn't seen her. Even Sal's pizzeria was missing its usual pizza ghost. She was gone. He cursed, getting into the SUV. But in a high-rise office across the city, a hacker for hire was cracking into traffic cam servers, and 30 minutes later, a grainy image popped onto Marcus's private monitor. A silhouette dragging his body from the wreck. Alina! Visible for 2 seconds, head turned just enough to show her face. Marcus leaned in, stunned. Reese appeared behind him. That's her. Marcus's throat tightened. That's her. And in that frozen image, a blur of smoke, blood, and rain, Marcus saw something no algorithm could detect. Determination. She didn't just save him. She changed him. He wouldn't stop until he found her. And Alina. She had no idea her life was already unraveling from the moment she said, "Don't die on me." Not just because she saved a billionaire, but because someone tried to murder one, and she might be the only witness left alive. Alina didn't sleep that night. Her shelter behind the shuttered subway platform was quiet, the usual hum of the city swallowed by a tense, uneasy silence. She lay curled under her coat, staring up at the cracked concrete ceiling, still gripping the card the stranger had tossed at her earlier. Reese. Even the name sounded too clean, too deliberate. She'd seen guys like him before. Soft voices, hard eyes, promises that came with handcuffs. But something about him had felt different. He hadn't pushed. He hadn't followed her when she turned and vanished. Still, she didn't trust it. Not him, not the man in the suit he was talking about. And definitely not the word, thank you. Every adult who'd ever offered her that ended up taking something. She slid the card into the side pocket of her coat anyway, just in case. A scream shattered the silence. Alina bolted upright, heart hammering, before realizing it was just a dream, a leftover echo from the night of the crash. The fire, the man's voice, the way he had looked at her like she was the only person in the world. She'd heard the desperation in his last words. Please don't let me die here. And now, somehow, that man, a stranger with fear in his voice and fire on his heels, was a billionaire with security teams and surveillance, and a man named Reese, hunting her down in alleys. The city felt different in the morning. Brighter, but no less dangerous. She moved quickly, navigating streets she knew would be quiet at this hour. She didn't head toward the bakery or the church steps or the diner that sometimes gave her toast when no one was watching. She went west, toward the river, somewhere she hadn't been in weeks. Somewhere she knew she wouldn't be found, or so she thought. Back at the Devereux Tower, Marcus was pacing again, but this time with a purpose.
His assistant Layla walked beside him, tablet in hand, rattling off a list of calls he was supposed to return. Cancel the Europe board call. Push the investor lunch to Friday. And send a gift to Mayor Baldwin for the fundraiser. Layla paused. And the press inquiry about the girl. Marcus stopped mid-stride. What press inquiry? Layla blinked. Someone at the Tribune leaked a story, unconfirmed, but they're calling her your guardian angel. Marcus's jaw tightened. Kill it. I already did. But Marcus, the questions are coming. If someone's trying to hurt you, they are. Layla lowered her voice. Do you know who? He didn't answer. Not yet, but he had a name and a face. Richard Lindley, the man who'd once been his closest ally, a man who had every reason to want him silenced. Where's Reese? Marcus asked. Still out, Layla said. He's following a new lead. Said he'd call if it was solid. Marcus nodded. If he finds her, I want to be there. No press. No announcement. Just me. Understood. Alina sat cross-legged on the edge of an old dock, watching the river churn in slow, lazy ripples. A rusted cargo ship passed, its horn low and mournful. It reminded her of the lullabies her mom used to hum, before she left. She pulled out a bottle cap, turning it over in her fingers. Red, clean, from the night of the fire. She'd picked it up off the street before she'd seen the car smoking in the rain. Now it felt like it belonged to another lifetime. Someone sat down beside her. She flinched hard, ready to run, but the voice was calm. Easy. I'm not here to drag you anywhere. Reese. How the hell did you find me? She snapped, heart pounding. Your pattern changed, he said, hands on his knees. You stopped hitting the bakery. No sign of you near the church or the station. That told me you were hiding. This place. It's peaceful. You'd come here to think. She scowled. You a shrink now too? He smiled faintly. I was a detective. Now I just try to understand people. Alina looked away, ashamed of how much she'd hoped someone would come looking for her, and terrified that someone actually had. Reese took something from his coat. A small envelope. What's that? A letter. From Marcus. She didn't reach for it. I told him you wouldn't read it, Reese added. But he wrote it anyway. Alina stared at the envelope like it might explode. You said someone tried to kill him, she said after a moment. Was it true? Reese's face darkened. Yes. And you think I saw something? Maybe, or maybe not. That's not why he wants to talk. Then why? Reese hesitated. Then, slowly, he placed the envelope between them and stood. Because in the moment that mattered, you didn't ask who he was. You just saved him, and it changed everything for him. He walked away without another word. Alina didn't touch the envelope for nearly 10 minutes. When she finally opened it, the handwriting was firm and elegant. Alina, I don't know your story, and I won't pretend to understand it. But I remember every second of what you did that night. You didn't save Marcus Devereaux the billionaire. You saved a terrified man begging for his life. If you ever want to talk, no strings, no expectations, I'll be waiting. Not because you owe me anything, but because I owe you everything. Marcus. She read it twice, then folded it and slipped it into her coat next to Reese's card. And that was the moment her wariness cracked, just a little. Not enough to trust, but enough to hope. Somewhere across the river, a man with scars and secrets looked out his window and whispered her name. She didn't know it yet, but her life wasn't unraveling. It was finally beginning. The elevator doors closed with a soft hiss behind Marcus Devereaux as he stepped into the dim hallway of his private penthouse. The skyline of Chicago stretched endlessly behind the glass walls, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He had replayed the girl's face over and over again since that night. That moment in the car, smoke in his lungs, metal twisted around him, and then, her. She was real. And Reese had found her. Her name's Alina, Reese had told him earlier that morning. Probably around 10 or 11. No family in any system. She lives off-grid. Back alleys, abandoned stations, park benches. Smart. Cautious. But she read your letter. That one sentence had changed everything. Marcus hadn't expected her to write back. He wasn't even sure she could read. But something about her, the steadiness in her eyes, the decisiveness of her actions that night, told him she was no ordinary child. She was surviving in a world that was designed to forget kids like her. Now he just needed to find a way to reach her, and fast, because something else was unraveling. At that very moment, in a boardroom lit with sterile overhead lighting, Richard Lindley, former CFO of Devereaux Industries and Marcus's closest ally before the betrayal, was studying a blueprint on a sleek glass table. His fingers tapped slowly, rhythmically, against the steel pen in his hand. "He knows," said the man across from him. James Harlan, a tech consultant with more loyalty to dollar signs than ethics. "I figured," Richard replied. "But knowing and proving are two different things." "What about the kid?" Richard's eyes narrowed. "What about her? The girl who pulled him out. Word is, he's looking for her, personally." For the first time, Richard's tapping stopped. "She saw something, didn't she?" "Nothing she can prove," Richard said. "But that doesn't matter. If Marcus brings her forward, sympathy becomes leverage. He turns this from a corporate vendetta into a fairy tale. People eat that stuff up. So what do? We make sure she stays hidden, or better yet, discredited." Back across town, Alina stood on the edge of the Fountain Plaza in Grant Park. She didn't like standing still in one place too long, but this time was different. Reese was supposed to meet her. Somewhere public, somewhere quiet. That's what they'd agreed. The wind whipped her curls into her face, and she pulled her hood tighter. She hated how exposed she felt. She hated how much she'd thought about that letter, but she hadn't run. And when she saw the tall black man in the tailored coat standing across the plaza, alone, she didn't run then, either. Marcus didn't move. He let her come to him. Her steps were slow but deliberate, each one weighed down by a dozen instincts, screaming at her to disappear. But she didn't. When she reached him, they stood in silence for a moment. "I didn't think you'd come," he said finally, his voice low. "I almost didn't." "Why did you?" Alina shrugged. "You wrote it like you meant it." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I did." Another pause. She looked him over, no longer bloodied or desperate, now polished, quiet, controlled. He looked like someone who could buy a city block before lunch. "You don't look like you're dying anymore," she said bluntly. "No," he said. "Thanks to you." She squinted. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Alina folded her arms. "So what now? You give me a check? A medal?" "I don't want your money." "I'm not here to give you anything," Marcus said. "I'm here to ask if I can help you." "Why?" His answer was quiet but certain. "Because no one helped me when I was a kid." "Not really. And because I think you're a lot like I was. Too smart to be invisible. Too stubborn to stay forgotten." Alina's guard wavered. Not much, but enough. Then she asked the one question she hadn't let herself voice until now. "Was it true? That someone tried to kill you?"
Marcus's jaw tightened. Yes. Do you know who? I think so. Are you going to go after them? Marcus met her eyes. Would you? Alina hesitated. If I knew someone tried to end me. Yeah, I'd burn their world down. He smiled at that. I figured you would. She looked down, toes nudging the edge of the stone.
You really that rich? He chuckled. Last I checked.
Then why meet me here? No cameras? No lawyers, no guards. Because none of those things pulled me out of a burning car. Alina looked up, and this time she didn't flinch. You think I'm special? No, he said. I know you are. She stared at him for another long moment. Then, slowly, cautiously, she reached into her coat and pulled out the red bottle cap. The same one she'd carried since that night. I kept this, she said. Don't know why. Marcus took it gently. I do. A sharp whistle cut through the plaza air. Reese. He approached fast, his face grim. We've got a problem. Marcus tensed. What kind? Your former friend just filed a petition to freeze your personal assets. Claims your mental state is unstable after the accident. What? Alina looked between them. What does that mean? Marcus clenched his jaw. It means he's coming after everything. And if he can prove I'm not fit to run the company, he takes over, Reese finished. Alina narrowed her eyes. And he's the one who tried to kill you? We think so, Marcus said. You got proof? Not yet, Reese said. But if we can trace the tampering on the car. Alina held up a hand. You won't, not from him. He'll cover it all. What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean, I saw someone that night, she said. Before the crash, a guy in a blue hoodie with yellow gloves. He dropped something under the back of your car before he bolted. Marcus's breath caught. You sure? I remember colors better than names, Alina said. It's how I don't get lost. Reese was already pulling out his phone. That's more than we had before. Marcus looked at her, stunned. Why didn't you say anything earlier? She shrugged. Didn't trust you? Still don't. But, Alina looked at the bottle cap still in his hand. But I think maybe you're not full of it. Yet. It wasn't much. But it was a start. And for Marcus Devereaux, standing in a cold plaza beside a girl who'd saved his life and might now be the key to saving his legacy, it was everything. The night air wrapped around the rooftop like a blanket of silence, broken only by the low hum of traffic far below. Alina sat cross-legged near the edge, arms tucked into her sleeves, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She liked it up here. No one looked down long enough to notice her. No one asked questions. But tonight someone had, and now everything was shifting. Behind her, the glass door to the penthouse slid open with a whisper. Figured I'd find you up here, Marcus said as he stepped out, a soft blanket draped over one arm. He didn't come too close. Just stood at a respectful distance, reading her silence like a seasoned negotiator. I'm not cold, Alina said flatly. Didn't say you were, Marcus replied. He laid the blanket on the nearest bench and lowered himself onto it with a slow grunt. His ribs were still sore. For a moment, they sat in silence again, facing the city. I used to sleep on rooftops too, he said after a while. Alina glanced at him, skeptical. Right. I did, Marcus said, not defensively but quietly. In Atlanta, when I was about your age, ran from foster care. Thought I was smarter than the system. Were you? I was lucky, he said. But I learned fast. Luck runs out. Alina didn't respond. Her fingers tightened around the soda cap in her pocket.
the same one he'd returned to her earlier.
"They're gonna come for you,"
she said finally. Marcus turned his head.
"Who?"
"Your enemies. The ones who want your company. Your name."
"Your power. They're not just coming for you. They're gonna come through me." His jaw clenched. They already tried. The legal motion to question my stability wasn't just business. It was a warning shot. "And now I'm a liability," Alina said. "You're not." "But I am." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You're the one person who was there when no one else was. If anything, you're the only reason I still have a shot at fighting this." Alina exhaled slowly, eyes still locked on the skyline. "Then why do I feel like running?" "Because that's what you've always had to do to survive." "I don't want to be used," she said. "Not by you. Not by anyone." Marcus didn't answer right away. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet pouch. From it, he took a delicate gold chain. Hanging from the chain was a tiny sun pendant. "This belonged to my mother," he said. "She used to say, 'Even on the darkest days, you deserve to shine. I want you to have it.'" Alina looked at him, guarded. "That's supposed to buy my loyalty?" "No," he said, setting the necklace gently on the stone beside her. "It's a reminder that you're not just a survivor. You're allowed to be more." They sat there until the cold crept into their bones, until the city quieted. But neither of them moved. Downstairs, in a corner office lit by twin lamps, Reese leaned over a screen. The security footage had finally come through, a grainy clip from a streetlight camera 4 blocks away from the crash. The quality was low, but it was enough. There, a figure. Blue hoodie, yellow gloves, the same description Alina had given. He zoomed in frame by frame, then froze, tattoo. Just beneath the sleeve, a half-sun etched in ink. It was a mark Reese recognized, an old symbol from a Detroit-based gang long since absorbed into corporate muscle for hire. He picked up the phone. "Marcus, we've got something." "You might want to sit down." The next morning, they met in Marcus's private conference room. Alina sat in one of the high-backed leather chairs, legs dangling, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. Reese stood at the head of the table, a tablet in hand. "I ran the tattoo through the gang database," he explained. "Pulled from local law enforcement files. Found a match. Name's Dante Fields. Used to do wet work for low-level corporate hits. He's been quiet for a few years, off the radar." "Until now," Marcus said. "Until your brakes failed," Reese confirmed. "Can we tie him to Richard Lindley?" "Not directly," Reese said. But if I pay him a visit," Alina interrupted, "I bet I can get him to talk." Both men looked at her. "No," Marcus said. "Yes," Alina pushed back. "You said it yourself." "I'm the reason you're still alive. Let me help." "You've helped enough," Marcus said. "It's too dangerous." "You said I'm not a liability," she challenged. "I said you're not alone." That silenced her. But the room pulsed with tension, because beneath all the layers, money, suits, scars, they were the same. 2 survivors who didn't know how to stop fighting. "I'll go," Reese said. "I'll keep it quiet." Marcus nodded slowly. "And I want a tale on Lindley." "If he's pulling strings, I want to know who's dancing." "And what about her?" Reese asked, glancing at Alina. "She stays close," Marcus said. "And safe." "I don't do safe," Alina muttered. "You do now." She rolled her eyes but didn't argue further. As the men got to work, Alina stared down at her hands, safe. It felt like a foreign word, but the pendant around her neck glinted under the light,
and for the first time in years, she didn't mind the weight of something that wasn't survival, something like belonging. Something like family. The elevator opened to a sterile hallway humming with fluorescent light. Reese stepped out first, his leather jacket zipped to the chin, eyes scanning every door number. Alina followed silently, her hoodie pulled tight over her head, hands stuffed in her pockets. They were in the Faraday apartments, a crumbling complex where the drywall peeled like bark and the ceiling dripped, even when it wasn't raining. Apartment 3C, Reese murmured, glancing at his phone. Dante Fields lives there, if he's still alive. They stopped outside a battered steel door with dents near the handle. Reese reached for his belt, but didn't pull a weapon. Just rested his hand there ready. You let me do the talking, he told Alina. This guy doesn't play nice. Alina raised a brow. What makes you think I do? Reese almost smiled, but knocked twice instead. Short, sharp, deliberate. The kind of knock that said this wasn't a social call. Silence. Then the unmistakable sound of someone cocking a gun. Back off, came a voice from inside, muffled but filled with warning. You're not supposed to find me. Reese pressed forward. Too late for that, Dante. We just want to talk. Another silence, then a click. The door cracked open an inch, secured by a chain. Dante Fields peeked through. His eyes narrowed, locking on Reese. Then, on Alina. His face darkened. What's the kid doing here? She's got more courage than half the people I've worked with, Reese replied coolly. We've got questions. You've got answers. The door shut, chain unlatched, and opened again. Inside, the apartment was chaos. Dishes piled in the sink, newspaper clippings on the wall, blackout curtains nailed to the window frames. The TV played static on mute. Dante, in a faded tank top and torn jeans, paced the room like a caged animal. I got nothing to say, he barked, grabbing a half-smoked cigarette from the table. I was paid to vanish. Don't mess that up for me. Paid by who? Reese asked. Dante laughed without humor. You already know. Alina stepped forward before Reese could speak. Richard Lindley. Dante turned to her, eyebrow raised. Smart girl. He wanted Marcus dead, she said, but you failed. I was supposed to rig the brakes, Dante said, shrugging. I did. That was the job. Easy cash. No faces. Just a name and a car. The guy was supposed to burn. Alina's jaw clenched. He didn't, Reese said. Because of her. Dante looked at her again. Something changed in his eyes. Not respect, not sympathy. Just recognition. You were the kid, he said slowly. You pulled him out. Yeah, she said, voice cold. And now I need you to help finish what I started. He blinked. You want him dead? No, she snapped. I want justice. Dante looked genuinely amused. Kid, people like Lindley don't face justice. They write the rules. Reese stepped in. That's where you're wrong. We already have enough to bury him in court, but your testimony would seal it, get him on attempted murder, conspiracy, maybe even racketeering. Dante scoffed. You think I'd survive long enough to testify? Reese pulled a flash drive from his pocket. Give us your statement. We'll protect you. Dante hesitated. Then sighed. Fine, but only because I got a kid in Missouri. Haven't seen her in 3 years. If this means I die with some part of my soul intact, maybe it's worth it. He sat down, lit another cigarette, and began to talk. It took less than 30 minutes. That night, back in the penthouse, Marcus stood at the window, watching the city lights like a general surveying his battlefield. He wore a dark turtleneck and dress pants, sleeves rolled up to his forearms. Beside him, Alina sat curled into a corner of the couch, sketchbook in hand, but mostly forgotten.
I never knew who to trust, he said quietly. Not even my own board. Not until you. Alina didn't look up. I don't trust you yet. I know, he said, but I'll earn it. There was a long pause. She finally spoke, softer this time. Why'd you say those words that night, in the car? Marcus turned. What words? Please don't let me die here. He exhaled slowly, crossing the room. Because I'd spent my whole life thinking power made me untouchable. And in that moment, trapped, helpless, I realized it didn't mean anything. Not if no one cared enough to save me. Alina's eyes flicked up to his. And you did. She closed the sketchbook. Yeah. But I'm not your hero. Marcus sat beside her. No. But you're the reason I became one. Neither of them smiled. But for the first time, neither of them needed to. They both knew what was coming. The trial. The headlines. The storm. And this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension as reporters whispered into microphones and camera shutters clicked in anticipation. Every eye followed Marcus King as he stepped through the side entrance, clad in a sharp grey suit that didn't quite hide the bruise above his collarbone. His face was calm, but beneath that composed exterior, his blood simmered. Today wasn't just about exposing Richard Lindley. It was about reclaiming control over his life and proving publicly that justice could still roar louder than money. Alina entered behind him, not in her usual oversized hoodie, but in a simple navy blue dress and white sneakers. She walked close to Marcus, but didn't hold his hand. She didn't need to. Her presence alone told the world everything it needed to know. She had earned her place beside him. The prosecution began by laying out the facts. The tampered brakes, the rigged door locks, the hired mechanic Dante Fields, whose recorded confession now sat in the court's evidence vault. Lindley, flanked by a stone-faced legal team, looked strangely confident, as if none of this mattered. It wasn't until the judge announced the star witness that the tide shifted. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Mr. Marcus King to the stand. Whispers swept through the gallery. Marcus approached the witness stand and took the oath, his voice low but unwavering. For the next 20 minutes, he answered every question with a blend of precision and restraint, describing the night of the crash, the fire, the fear, and the small figure who pulled him out of death's grip. His voice only cracked once, when he said her name. She didn't ask for anything, Marcus told the jury. No reward, no recognition. She saved me because it was the right thing to do. And I stand here today because of her. Then came the cross-examination. Lindley's lead attorney, Charles Harlan, was a tall man with a predator's poise and a mouth made for deflection. He leaned on the stand like a man preparing to crush a narrative. Mr. King, are you saying a homeless child just happened to be nearby, saw your $1 million car on fire and pulled you out with no help? Yes. No police report filed by her, no hospital admission. No identity confirmation. Just your word? Yes. You expect this court to believe that the most powerful black businessman in Atlanta was saved by a nameless, faceless child? She has a name, Marcus said. Alina. The gallery murmured. And where is this Alina now? Before Marcus could respond, a voice rang from the back of the room. Here! Every head turned. Alina stood, her chin raised, hands by her sides. She walked down the aisle with quiet strength, unfazed by the sea of eyes or the judge's surprised expression. May I speak, Your Honor? The judge hesitated, then nodded. Alina stepped onto the witness stand, standing tall. She didn't wait to be sworn in. My name is Alina Jordan. I'm 14. I've been homeless for 4 years. And yes, I pulled him out of that car.
I don't care if anyone believes it. I know what I did, so does he.
The judge raised a hand.
Miss Jordan, you'll need to take the oath before continuing. She did, then locked eyes with Harlan. You want evidence? She said, voice sharp.
I've got the scars from the broken glass, the shoes I wore that night, still soaked with smoke. But none of that matters.
What matters is that your client tried to kill a man, and he failed, and I'm not hiding anymore.
A beat of stunned silence fell over the courtroom. Then Harlan smirked. And what exactly are you now? His adopted daughter? His spokesperson? Alina didn't flinch.
I'm the reason your client's not a murderer. The courtroom erupted. The judge had to bang his gavel 3 times to restore order. Outside, the story spread like wildfire. Teen street girl confronts billionaire's would-be killer in court. Inside, Marcus watched her, not with pride, but with awe. She hadn't just stood up for him. She had stood up for herself, and for every invisible kid who had been taught to stay silent. After court adjourned for the day, Marcus caught up with her outside the courthouse steps. She stood facing the crowd, cameras, reporters, strangers chanting her name.
You didn't have to do that, he said softly, pulling her to the side. Yes, I did, she replied. They needed to see me. He nodded, emotion flickering behind his eyes. They did, and I've never seen anything braver. She paused. Do you think we'll win? We already are, Marcus answered.
Every second you keep showing up, we're changing the story.
From the edge of the crowd, Charles Harlan stood beside Lindley, both of them tight-lipped and furious. Alina glanced their way. Let them watch, she said. And just like that, she turned and walked through the crowd, not hidden anymore, not afraid. The streets had tried to erase her. But today, she wrote herself into history. The verdict came on a rainy afternoon, fitting somehow, like the storm that started everything. Alina sat beside Marcus in the front row of the courtroom, her hands folded in her lap, knuckles white. Her hair was neatly braided, and she wore a navy blazer over a soft yellow dress Sophia had picked out that morning. The rain streaked down the windows behind the jury box, washing the city in muted grey. But inside, every breath in the courtroom was held in a suspended silence. All rise. The jury filed in, their expressions unreadable. Marcus reached over, his pinky gently brushing against Alina's hand. It was the smallest gesture, but one that said, I'm here. The judge nodded to the foreman. Has the jury reached a verdict? Yes, Your Honor. In the case of the state versus Richard Lindley, on the charge of attempted murder, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Alina's body stiffened, her breath catching in her throat. On the charge of conspiracy to commit a felony? Guilty. Marcus closed his eyes for a brief second. The air, thick with months of tension, seemed to lift. Lindley sat motionless, pale, his hands clenched on the defense table. His lawyer placed a hand on his arm, whispering something, but the man didn't respond. All the arrogance that once oozed from his every word had drained from his face. What remained was a man stripped of power, reputation, and certainty. The judge thanked the jury and scheduled the sentencing for the following month. Lindley was remanded without bail, but as the courtroom slowly emptied, one moment burned brighter than any verdict. A young woman in a yellow dress stepped forward to face the cameras. No press team, no lawyers. Just Alina Jordan. I didn't come here to be famous, she said, her voice calm but firm. I didn't save a billionaire expecting anything in return. I did it because it was right, because I knew what it felt like to be left behind. I don't want to be invisible anymore, and I don't want any other kid like me to feel like they are either. Behind her, Marcus stood quietly,
letting her take center stage.
Alina continued. This isn't just about one man trying to get revenge. It's about what happens when people in power think they can get away with anything.
But not anymore. Not today. As the cameras snapped and the microphones leaned in closer, she finished simply, My name is Alina Jordan, and I'm not hiding anymore. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. News stations ran features on the girl who saved a billionaire. Talk shows asked for interviews. Offers flooded in, from book agents, publicists, non-profits. But Alina only said yes to one thing, starting something of her own. The Jordan Initiative launched with funding from the Marcus King Foundation. Its mission was clear, to create safe spaces for homeless youth, especially girls, and to teach them the skills to survive and thrive on their own terms. The first youth center opened in East Atlanta, inside a renovated warehouse not far from the alley where Alina once scavenged for food. It had showers, warm beds, lockers for personal belongings, and most importantly, a room with walls covered in drawings. Marcus kept his promise, stepping back when needed, stepping forward when asked. He became her legal guardian first. Her father eventually. And somewhere along the way, the penthouse didn't feel so cold anymore. One night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the skyline, Alina handed him a folded piece of paper. What's this? He asked, unfolding it. A drawing. A house, this time with a garden and 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small. And above them, in looping letters, were the words, Home isn't a place. It's a choice. Marcus felt something settle in his chest. Something he didn't know had still been missing. He looked at her, eyes misty. You changed my life, he said. She smiled. You changed mine first. To those watching this story, maybe you're like Marcus, someone with everything but still searching for something real. Or maybe you're like Alina, fighting every day to be seen, to be heard, to matter. This story isn't just about a billionaire or a girl who saved him. It's about how one choice, one act of courage, can rewrite the entire narrative. How justice isn't always served in courtrooms, but sometimes in silence, in survival, in love. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Share it. Let someone who needs it hear Alina's voice. Because sometimes all it takes is one spark to light up a whole city.